get a time or a visual sync again.
And camera rolling.
Okay, so
and then just in the
wait a minute,
last...
just, because all this kind of stuff can cause a problem. Now go.
Okay, so just in the last couple of years, I've continued creating corpora. I just created a 100 million word corpus of American soap operas. I have created a 25 million word corpus of general conference talks going back to the 1850s, and I took all of the Google Books data, which is about 155 billion words, and have created a corpus out of that as well.
Wow.
Forgot about that.
100 billion?
155 billion.
155 billion words. You're familiar with what reCAPTCHA does? What they're doing with that?
Yeah.
That same guy, have you heard about what he's doing with Duolingo?
Yeah, you were telling me about that last week.
Yeah. It's rather fascinating. Okay. Okay, let's move on to, we've been talking about production and development, production, and so on. Now let's talk about the use. Okay, that's a new section here. Who uses the corpora that you're creating?
The corpora are used by just a wide range of people, from teachers and learners to linguists to historians, cultural historians, people interested in literary studies, lawyers, jurists, people who are just interested in language and how language changes and how it varies from one place to another. So really a wide range of people.
Okay. I haven't noticed a problem. When we start a question and you're saying something and then you go to your answer, just mark a beat in between your introductory whatever and then the actual beginning of it, just a split second.
Okay.
And that helps on the edit side too. Let's revisit what you just said on who uses it. What are some of the most interesting uses that you've encountered?
Can I think about that for just a minute?
Yeah.
I mean, there's some anecdotal weird ones, but it ends up making the corpus look really...
Whatever is interesting. This will be viewed by a lot of different people who don't know anything about corpus linguistics, but in some cases, maybe even the weirder it is, the more interesting it might be. But whatever comes to mind.
Refresh your mind on what you said last week?
Well, I mean, I have some things here, but yeah. So go ahead.
Supreme Court case was one of them, right?
You said teachers of English throughout the world use it to let their students see how English is actually used, not just what the textbooks say. And then you also said, besides the teaching aspect of it, it's used for legal research for lawyers wanting to know what words mean. It's been used a couple of times in Supreme Court decisions.
Okay.
We want the people and how they use it, but also very concise and brief on how they use it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So pick one of those, and then we'll do another one, kind of thing. But just
so you don't want me to hit all three of them right now.
give us an edit point. So
okay.
It depends.
We need beats in between.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So the corpora are used a lot by teachers throughout the world, and they use it to provide their students just with a sense of what English really looks like, not from the textbooks, but what speakers and writers of English are actually doing. Besides that, the corpora have been used for legal research. For example, there's a recent Supreme Court decision and a couple of court decisions from the Utah Supreme Court that have used the corpora to understand what words and phrases mean. And besides that, the corpora are used widely by people in what's called natural language processing, people who are training computers to think like humans. Humans have a lot of intuitions about what's going on in language. Computers don't have any of that intuition, but by taking a lot of data from a corpus, we can begin to train computers to think like humans.
My favorite guy that I mentioned that was at UT Austin, he was one of the Roger Schenk's conceptual dependency theory, had a lot of input in some of the early phases of that. He took major issue with Chomsky's rule-based approach, and he developed a whole theory of learning on case-based reasoning.
Yeah.
And if you think about what exemplars are of language that you have in your corpus, each of those is a case. I mean,
sure.
sort of the idea that
Sorry, I'd just like to refocus him.
okay. What happened on the focus?
It goes out every now and then. Like you kind of want to adjust it every
You're
about
kidding.
halfway through the interview.
You're kidding.
We found in our footage that for some reason you have to be careful because later in the interview.
Do we need to have the camera checked?
Yeah, I think actually that in the future that would be good. Yeah, so I would always kind of double check.
Okay, good. Perfect. Okay.
About 10 minutes.
Pick one of these that you find the most vital.
Oh, computer.
Like, I mean, you.
I mean, for me, we haven't really talked about the linguisticy
Yeah, we need to
stuff.
start again.
Yeah. Sorry, because when he goes back to his chair.
We haven't really talked about the linguisticy side of it, looking at, changes in culture and society as viewed through the lens of language.
Let's make
That's
sure
me,
we.
the
that's-
end.
Yeah, okay.
Let's make
So
sure
right
we
now
get-
we're talking more
The uses.
practical, hands-on.
Yeah, let's do a little bit of both, but I really like your technical term, linguisticy. Let's make sure we get that one.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I'm glad we aren't recording that. That's actually what we're saving the best for last.
Okay. So, I mean, maybe I'll just give a quick example of when I was in China a year and a half ago.
Perfect.
I was telling Whitney about that I was talking to this, and I don't think we're recording this right now, but I was talking to this group of 250 students there about certain aspects of English, but to use real examples from a corpus that go beyond the standard textbooks that they're using. I mean, they were laughing as they saw these examples. It
Okay,
was,
I like it.
okay.
When I told you about that CNN interview I did, I would start talking like that. They say, no, save it.
Yeah.
Because it never comes out as well the second time
Yeah.
as it does the first. That
Right.
was their assertion. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
But I found
So do
myself.
you want me to do that right now?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I think we're ready. Are we ready? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, as far as using language or using I gotta start over. As far as using corpora for language teaching, I had an interesting experience a year and a half ago when I was in China, and I gave a lecture to 200 or 250 students there, who of course had learned English from textbooks, but when we started looking at what was happening in English in terms of word meaning and grammatical structures and so on, they could see real life examples from a corpus, not made up examples. They found it really interesting and really meaningful, again, to go beyond just the basic introduction that you'd get in a textbook.
Good.
It was kind of all over the place on that.
No,
Actually, that was great.
that was excellent. Yes. Okay. How are we doing on time? Did you say we need to be out of here in about 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay.
12 minutes.
12 minutes. Okay. We're okay.
I mean, we can record for another 12 minutes and then sort of set the room back in order.
There we go. Okay, I think unless you wanted to say something about another specific use, we can press on to the last section.
Maybe how you've used it as a teacher in your classroom.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've used the corpora in a number of different classes. I teach an English grammar course where rather than talking about what's right and what's wrong in English grammar, we talk about what is in English grammar. So how British and American English might be different in terms of grammatical constructions, or how newspaper English might be different from academic English, is different from spoken English in terms of grammatical phenomena. And the students seem to enjoy that because, again, it's a lot more real world than just a boring, static textbook explanation of what's going on. Another class that I've used the corpora in quite a bit is a course looking at the history of American English through corpora, where we have students looking at changes in American society and culture through the lens of language over the last 200 years or so. So we might be looking at politics or entertainment or sports or the relationship between men and women or whatever. And we'll look at the language that's used to describe that 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 150 years ago. And we can get a lot of insights into how society is changing by seeing what shows up in the text.
That's one of my long career has led me to believe, I think I told you this, language is the way it is because that's the way it is.
Yeah.
Not because of some guy sitting in this tower someplace deciding what was right and wrong.
One thing he said that was really cool last week about how your corporate is really the only one that allows people to do this. You said how I use it a lot of my classes is languages are always changing. With the corporate that I've created, you can see the changes in words over time. That whole aspect of how the language is even changing right now. My corporate is really the only ones out there that allow people to do that.
Yeah.
You sort of said that.
You did.
But let's see if we can focus.
A sound bite of it.
Change in language is because a lot of people don't realize that language is in fact an evolving thing. And so start with that concept of change and say how your corpus relates to that.
Okay. So one of the nice things about the corpus of Historical American English, COA, is that it's really the only corpus out there that's large enough and allows us to do a number of different kinds of searches that allow us to see how English has been changing over the last 200 years. So whether it's particular grammatical construction and how and why that has changed, or the words that are used to describe a particular concept. A simple example of this would be if you look at adjectives occurring near woman in the late 1800s and then compare those to adjectives occurring near woman in the last 20 or 30 years. They're very, very different. Why are they different? Because the way that we view women in society has changed quite a bit. So again, corpora can serve as kind of a lens to look at those cultural changes. Another simple example is if you just look at the frequency of